Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to be here. Let's start the evening, and I'm sure we will all have a lot of questions for Eddie. So let me start with my questions, and then I shall open the floor out for questions from you. And then after that, Eddie will take over and take you through a few of his. I don't know what you have planned, Eddie. Actually, do you?
No, I have absolutely nothing planned.
Oh, okay.
Akshat said very specifically, don't plan anything. This is YPO.
Okay, so a little intro on Eddie before we start. Eddie is a yoga instructor, author, and lecturer from NYC. He has studied yoga in India since 1988 and specializes in the intersection between traditional yoga practices and modern scientific applications through research and studies. That's the really interesting part, this application. And implementing yoga and meditation into undeserved communities for personal development and empowerment. He's the director of the Broome Street Temple in Soho. That's a Ganesh temple that he's founded. He's doing Masters in Science at Vivekananda Yoga University, and his latest book is called One Simple Thing, A New Look at the Science of Yoga. This is the book. Yoga is something that I've been very interested in, especially after my journey in 2018. It started me on a new journey where I started looking at yoga in a new way. And when Eddie came out with this book, and when I read part of the book, I really just had to share it with my book club and my community members, with you all. When you hear things in where yoga, when there are the mantras in Sanskrit, when you hear things, sometimes there are so many variations to what a word means that it confuses you. And so I've been confused basically when I hear various mantras or various words in Sanskrit. And then here was this book which had simplified it. So One Simple Thing was really the right name. And the best thing about it was that for me, 2018, when the journey that I went through, the learning from it for me was that life is about simple things, which sounds very simple. And what I realized was the simple things are the hardest to do and to understand. And hence this book, I think, is for keeps. And I think I'm going to be referring to it a lot more often in the coming days in my life. Let's start with, what was the intent behind writing this book? I know you were going through lectures. For the past 4 years, you've been touring and doing lectures on it. What made you write the book?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for doing this. I know you flew in from Delhi today. You had a big event there, and you jumped off the plane and came running here to do this conversation. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Eddie.
And thank you, YPO, for having me, and Akshat for arranging all of this. It's really an honor and a great pleasure. I had this great interest in practicing yoga from the time I was young, about 18 or so. And I studied in India primarily, and I studied in very traditional ways for a very long time. And around the year 2010, after I'd been practicing for over 20 some odd years, a doctor walked into our temple. His name was Marshall Higgins, and he said, I've been referred to you because I'm doing a study on hypertension in African Americans who are more susceptible to heart disease, especially in America. And I wanted to see if yoga could help them with their hypertension. And would you design a study for me, or design a yoga protocol that would help people with hypertension? And I said, yes, I'd be happy to help you. I had absolutely zero idea what to do, because I'd never done anything like that. But I thought, well, why not? I'll just give it a try. So I designed a protocol for him, and we tested it. We did a 2-year study. We had a grant from the National Institute of Health, and we had very good results. Not quite as good as medication, but like 5 to 7 mercury points of reduction in sleep and blood pressure, which is very important. So that was very interesting and a big success. About 2 years later, we had the opportunity to do another study together. And this study was to see if yoga would help high school students in a very challenging school district, if it would help them with their grade point average. So I put another protocol together. It was almost exactly the same as the hypertension protocol. Same basic asana, same basic idea. And the kids were doing 40 weeks of yoga once a week, basically the whole school year. And we had very good results. We saw a 2.7% rise in grade point average in comparison to kids who were just doing a regular gym class. So I started thinking, so how is it that we do the same asanas for hypertension and blood pressure goes down? We do the same practices for grade point average, time on task and attention improves, so grades go up. How is it that that's working? So my thought was it has to have something to do with the nervous system. And so if you begin to, and that all of the asanas and pranayamas and relaxation techniques are going to be doing something to the nervous system to help restore balance, which is called homeostasis. And so our body has this innate ability to restore itself to balance if it is supported. Mm-hmm. So we have to sleep at the right hours, we have to eat the right food, we have to do some exercise, we have to do a little meditation, perhaps we have maybe hang out with people who support us and make us feel good, as psychosocial support they call it. So you have to do all these like simple little things, and if you do that, then your body will take care of you. But if you don't do those things, then homeostasis will not work as well and things go out of balance. So I started investigating this idea of what are the things that we can do to support homeostasis, restore balance, and then yoga begins to give what it promises, which is amazing results. And so the basic question I was asking in the book was, you look at any generalized yoga class, and some person might come because they have back pain, another person will come because they have high stress, another person will come because they're on a spiritual journey, another person will come because of trauma, another person will come because of, they want to get fit or they need to, start moving their body. Yeah. And all those 5 or 6 or 10 different types of people will come to the same yoga class, do the same things, and leave feeling better. Yeah. And I thought, well, this is very interesting because if, say, you went to a doctor, he would give you, or she would give you, or they would give you one medication for hypertension, they'd give you another medication for this, another for that. Absolutely. But the yoga seemed to be like this overall arching thing that could take care of a bunch of different things. Okay, so maybe not cure disease, not maybe eradicate disease, right, but be a great adjunctive treatment. Absolutely. So that's basically what led to the book.
But what was the process like when you were writing? What was the...
Well, there are 2 processes. One, there's this idea in yoga that's presented in Yoga Sutra of the kleshas. And kleshas are the obstructions to knowing who we truly are, and there are 5 of them. And I was looking at these kleshas thinking, all of these things sound to me like activities of the nervous system and functions of homeostasis as well.
Just so that everybody understands it, could you just name the 5 kleshas and when you explain it, just
yeah,
a bit.
Absolutely,
not too much.
Not too much. Good.
Yeah,
that's my problem.
I want them to read the book,
okay,
but just a little bit so that they understand what we're talking about.
Yes. So a klesha literally means an obstacle or an obstruction. And it's from the word klish, which means, hardship or suffering or pain. Klesha is Klesha, klesha.
And in the Hindi word, it would be that hafka le sha ki matra.
So, and there are 5 of them. The first is called avidya, and avidya is an incomplete knowing of who you are. So we all have a general idea of who we are. I think I'm Eddie, I think I'm a yoga teacher, I think I'm sitting here talking to Sonali, which is pretty cool. And so I think all these things, I have all these half identities, right? But who am I truly? Who am I as pure being, as consciousness? All of these things about who we truly are. Avidya means you don't know that completely. You might know some stuff, but you don't know everything. And what you don't know is who you truly are. From that grows all the other problems.
What we don't know is what we truly are.
Yeah.
You just slipped that sentence in, but oh my God.
So so after avidya comes asmita. And asmita means the narrative that we form about ourselves. So if I don't know who I truly am, I'm going to start making up stories. And I start making up those stories from the time I'm very young. As
as I'm being raised, the environment that I'm in, the way that my parents take care of me, any predisposition that I'm born genetically with. I'll start thinking that those things about my upbringing are truly me. And so within that narrative, there's going to be two basic things: the things that I like, that I'm drawn to, and the things that I don't like, that I want to stay away from.
Right.
And so my personality, all of our personalities, are going to be basically founded on these two things: the false identity, the stories we tell because we don't know who we truly are, and the things we like and the things we don't like. I like coffee, I don't like green tea. I like dark chocolate, I don't like milk chocolate. I like cricket, I really don't like baseball. Why would anyone even play that? So all these different things. And what happens is we latch on to these things that we like and we identify with them. And so...
Is that what leads to klesha?
No, that's part of klesha. That's coming out from the abstract. That's because we don't know who we truly are. So I latch on to things to form an identity. I hang out with particular types of groups of people, and we all form group identities together, and we think we're that group identity.
Right.
I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. We're not any of those things. We're just, we're consciousness being expressed as human beings. But we latch on to that stuff, we identify with it, and then that sets us apart from everybody else, causes a lot more problems. And what it leads to is something called abhinivesha, which is a clinging to life, a clinging to narrative, and a fear of extinction. Who will I be if I don't exist? Who will I be if I'm not my narrative? If my narrative is pulled out from under me, I will cease to exist, and that's a terrifying thought.
Yes.
So this is, sometimes it's translated as fear of death, but in the Yoga Sutra, it's not really death we're afraid of. It's not having an identity. So,
Not having an identity.
yeah. So what yoga is saying is, okay, you have an identity which is not bound by anything that changes. Your identity is pure being. That's who you truly are. But you get lost in all these different things. You think you're those things, and it causes suffering. So I looked at all of that, and I thought, okay, if fear of extinction or fear of death is the last of the kleshas and one of the hardest things to overcome, in our physiology, what is the thing which keeps us clinging to life? Any ideas? Family? Any other ideas? Breathing. Thank you. There you go. Breathing is the thing which keeps us clinging to life. So how do you know that that's true? Well, everyone just breathe in a breath for a moment. And now don't breathe out. At a certain point, you're going to have to breathe out because your body is going to want to keep oxygen circulating within you. So we have a mechanism inside of us that says you need to keep breathing so you stay alive. What other purpose is there for breathing? It's to keep you alive. When you stop breathing, you are no longer living. So we have all of these mechanisms that are the survival functions. The survival functions literally keep us clinging to life. And these are respiration, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, sexual reproduction, body temperature, and sleep. Okay, so these, and all of these functions which keep us clinging to life, these are functions of the brainstem.
Right.
So the lower part of the brain coming from the...
Yeah, we're not even conscious when that is happening. It just happens.
If we had to think about it, we wouldn't be able to sleep, we wouldn't be able to eat, we wouldn't be able to have a conversation. So all these things are happening. So I thought, okay, let's look at the basic yoga practices. What did the yogis do? Number one, they did postures, and the postures help you control blood pressure. And number two, they did slow breathing and held their breath for long periods of time. This is going to control respiration. Now, if respiration is one of the primary things making us cling to life, then the question becomes, if your breath is suspended for a long period of time, who are you when you're not breathing? What is your identity when your breath is suspended? And you just, and because there's something within the pranayama practices where it becomes not breath holding anymore, but your breath is naturally suspended. Yeah. And it can go on for long periods of time. Yeah. So when your breath naturally suspends itself, where's your identity? Who are you in that moment? So what I started seeing was that the yogis were taking all of these practices that were affecting brainstem functions. And whether it's control of sexuality, control of food, control of sleep, control of breath, control of posture, cold exposure, exposing yourself to heat, exposing yourself to freezing cold temperatures, walking through the Himalayas, walking up to Kedarnath barefoot. This is cold exposure. So all of these things, you begin to transcend the pairs of opposites. You begin to transcend the things that your nervous system is really bound to. And then your identity shifts. So that's basically what I was thinking about when I wrote the book.
When you started writing the book.
Yeah. So I said to, and Sonali and I know each other through Deepak Chopra. And the third, fourth, and the fifth? Oh no, I gave you five. The first is avidya. This is not knowing who you completely are. The second is asmita, your narrative, false narrative. The third, clinging to the things that you like, attachment to the things you like. This is called raga. And then dvesha, that's number 4. That's being attached to the things that you don't like. So both raga and dvesha are attachments. And then the fifth one, abhinivesha, is the clinging to life or the fear of extinction. So those are the 5. Not knowing who you are, false narrative, likes, dislikes, fear. Cool. So
how, how would you say this book is different from the other yoga books? Should I also add my bit to it?
You can add your bit because I don't think it's necessarily so different.
Well, for me, the thing that I really enjoyed about the book was that, like I said, I could understand what was being said over there. Maybe it is because it's a language which is today, you've been able to kind of make it understandable to the life we lead today. And so there's no disconnect. You've explained words, you've also kind of explained what the various words could mean, and you've tried and kind of shown us how we could relate to it in today's world. And that for me was an important thing, and I could keep going back to. And like I said, it needs a lot of reading. It's not something that I can just glance through, and it's definitely a book that I'm going to keep going back to. What made you, I mean, there are a lot of people have written books on yoga. What made you write this book? Because obviously there's something different that you are saying in this, and my perspective was that it was simpler for me to understand, relatable to today's life. What was yours?
Well, so, I had this idea that the kleshas had a physiological expression. Not that our physiology was causing the kleshas, but the kleshas were being expressed through our physiology, particularly through the brainstem. You could locate them somewhere, and you could do something about them. They didn't become these ephemeral things that you wondered, oh, where is my like? Oh, where is my dislike? Is that a mental thing? But I thought, well, you can find them in your brain, and then you can do something about them. So and Sonali and I know each other through Deepak Chopra, who's a colleague and a friend and a mentor to me. And he often says that I'm his yoga teacher, which is entirely not true. We've done yoga together, and that's the extent of it. And so one day I was talking to him, and I said, I have this thought about the kleshas and the brainstems and brainstem, and I passed the idea by him, and I told him about it. He said, that sounds like pretty original thinking. You should write it up.
Yeah.
And so I did, and that was the book.
Nice.
So he was a big impetus for me to actually put it in.
Put it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, that this is going to be something that we would all be referring to, and kind of keep going. And it's a path for tomorrow. I know that Deepak ji, you think very strongly about what and how yoga can influence what we're going through today, the community, the world at large. And would you want to add something about that? Because I know that's a very strong thing for Deepak ji also, about the young people and today's people, and also the beauty about, like you said, when you mentioned him, and think that the book is called A Simple Thing. And something very simple, like he said, that even if one person or, a couple of the youngsters start with the meditation, with the breathing practices, with thinking the way you think, and we can be moving forward to get the right changes that we need in the world. Usually what happens is that these are the changes that we think are so big and so difficult that you don't attempt them. And that's where this comes in, where you've simplified it and, we can understand it. And for me, also the beauty of it was that it was not just about the postures, because we do get caught up in it. And there are times when I remember getting very disheartened because I couldn't get a posture. And I'm like, oh, this is not the right way to do it, and I'm not being able to do it properly, and it doesn't look so nice, because of course we are looking at everything through the phone lens now. We can want to put it up on the Instagram and on social media, and the way it's looking. And slowly what I realized is that there were certain things that I was doing, and your book tells me now that that is also yoga. That is the way of thinking, and it's just the way you look at things, and it doesn't have to be about postures. And you've elaborated on that. Would you help us a bit on that? Because I think a lot of us here do get caught up with the fact that we are not able to reach our toes, or we are not able to touch our nose and stuff like that. We do get caught up in it. So if you could explain that a bit to us.
Well, the touching the nose part is easy.
Our nose to the knees, let's put it that way.
So, well, there's a couple things in there. The first is you were speaking about the ideas that Deepak and I have about well-being and things like that. Okay, so we'll start with that one. So there are different ways of looking at the word yoga. And also we have to definitely speak a lot these days about the crisis of anxiety and depression and mental health that is largely becoming destigmatized to speak about. But part of that destigmatization is speaking about it and talking about our own mental health struggles and our own stress troubles and all those things, and understanding how things like yoga, including meditation, including pranayama, can be helpful for that. So before I talk about how I think they can be helpful, we'll just talk about two different definitions of the word yoga. We often hear yoga means union. And for people who are not interested in a spiritual search, the word union honestly can be something not appealing or not bland, or it can be bland, or it can be like, well, I don't know what this union thing is of the individual spirit with a cosmic spirit, and I'm not terribly interested in that because I got stuff to do, and life is hard. So I see for a lot of the young people who are coming to class, they're searching for something, but they're not necessarily seeking liberation. They're seeking other troubles that they need to work out first before they think about liberation. And frankly, when I started doing yoga when I was 18, 19, I was on a spiritual search, and I thought I was seeking liberation and enlightenment, and I was, but there was a whole bunch of other stuff that I needed to deal with first. And so little by the years go by, and I finally got to the point where I thought, you know what? I'm not terribly interested in enlightenment right now. I'm interested in actually trying to be a good person and see, like, what does that feel like and what does that look like in the world? And so my ideas about what I was doing shifted. So one of the definitions of yoga that I have in my book and that I learned from one of my teachers was that yoga means relation. And relation. So how do we relate? How do we relate to our body? How do we relate to our nervous system? How do we relate to our breath? How do we relate to our mind and our emotions? And you can look at all of the 8 limbs of yoga, and even starting with the idea of yama, which means restraint, and there are 5 of them. There's non-harm, there's honesty, there's non-stealing, there's sexual responsibility, and then there's non-grasping or non-covetedness. All of these things are ways that we relate with the people in the world around us. To be in a state of non-harm is to not cause harm to the world around us, to ourselves as well, and to the world of the animals and the planet and everything around us. So we can look at all of the different limbs, how we relate to people, how we relate to our spiritual practices, how we relate to our body. That's asana. How do I relate to my breath? That's pranayama. How do I relate to my sense organs? That's pratyahara. How do I relate to my mind and my intellect? That's dharana and dhyana, meditation and concentration, or concentration and meditation. How do I relate to my spirit? And, that's samadhi. So this word relation then changes the idea that now I'm going to form this intimate relationship with these different aspects of being, and I'm going to work on them, because any relationship, as you know, takes work. And we all know that relationships take work. So why not think about everything that we're doing here as this grand relationship being, carried out, as they say in Mimamsa, on the altar of the divine. And then every action that we do is a formulation of a relationship based on thoughtfulness and kindness and awareness and paying attention and listening and all these things. So then it becomes a very simple thing that anything that you're interacting with, you have some basic principles. And it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. It can just be, how am I behaving in this moment? So,
Absolutely. Like you said, it becomes that one simple thing. So that's when you realize that when you look for, when Deepakji says that, you've taught him yoga, and I say that, you are my teacher, even if I'm not coming to you all the time, because it's understanding the fact that it's beyond the asanas. It's understanding that it's my relationship with everything. If I cannot use it as a way of life, then it's not yoga. And that kind of energy, that kind of mindfulness, that kind of understanding, it's not so easy and so simple to find the right teacher who will tell you that. When you really look for it, you will find, I was really stuck. I could not find that teacher, and then I found you. So I'm happy with that, and it's been enlightening, and thank you for explaining that.
I want to add in one other thing, if I may. And this is the idea, because I started off talking about anxiety and depression, mental health, and which is a very large part of the conversation these days, and a very important one. And yoga doesn't get rid of anxiety. Yoga doesn't get rid of depression. It doesn't get rid of any of these things that we struggle with. But what it does is because yoga is a practice of awareness, it teaches us how to be aware of things occurring in our body, because anxiety occurs in our body. Our heartbeat gets faster. Our breath becomes jagged. We might get heat up a little. Our palms might start sweating. We get stomach disorders, digestive problems. So anxiety, it happens in our body. So we become aware of our body through conscious movement, through conscious breathing. We can observe these things as they're happening, and then we can learn how to make cognitive decisions, which is decision making, about the things that we're experiencing. We learn to be aware through the body. We learn to be aware through the breath. We can observe things as they're happening, and then over time be educated about how we can respond to these things that are occurring. Now, this isn't just the idea presented in yoga, but this is presented in cognitive behavioral therapy. This is presented in the ideas about what the stress mechanism is in human beings, that information comes in, an experience happens, and we're going to respond to that experience based on a lot of different things. Our history, our upbringing, our genetics, all of these things are going to cause us to respond, which is called appraisal of the situation. So something happens, we have a cognitive appraisal of it. That cognitive appraisal is triggering different structures in the brain, primarily in the limbic system, which is a system of many interconnected organs, brain organs or brain parts, that are then going to send signals to release chemicals into the body, substances like noradrenaline, etc., that are going to make us feel a particular way. And we'll have systemic hyperarousal that then we experience as anxiety or as other things. If you begin to change the cognitive appraisal of the situation or of the sensation, then you begin to rewire your brain.
You can work backwards from it. You know that.
Correct.
How do you start getting the heart rate down? How do you start calming yourself down? And you can work backwards from it and attack the same problem.
This is the beauty of yoga as a mind-body practice. So we have information flows occurring in the body all the time. We can think about kindness, or we can think about compassion, and it's going to send messages from the brain to the limbic system, down through the brainstem, into the body, so we feel calm in the body. And this is, again, it's a scientific fact. We can just think about compassion, and it changes our heart rate. It changes the heart rate variability. It changes our blood pressure. Or we can do asanas, we can do pranayama. That will change our heart rate. That will change our heart rate variability, change our blood pressure. it will send messages up from the internal organs through the brainstem to the higher order of brain function in the neocortex. And then the higher levels of the brain will then say, I'm okay, I'm safe, everything is okay. And so this is called information processing from the bottom up, and thinking about compassion or kindness is information processing from the top down. And yoga combines both of these things, bottom up and top down information processing. And so this is why it's such an effective intervention, you could say, for a lot of the problems that we experience in society today.
That's why there are 5 people with 5 different problems but find the answer in this.
Correct.
Amazingly put. I must say there's a chapter in the book where that goes very, very scientific, and is the original part of the book, I would say, in his words, the original part of the thought process. And can you tell me a little bit more about that chapter where you're talking about how the nervous system and how the research that has gone into it, and the people you've done research with. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So basically all this information about the nervous system has been around for a very long time. And all I did was I studied the different branches of the nervous system and what they do, particularly the vagus nerve, which is like an information highway basically from the body to the brain and from the brain to the body. And I made correlates between the Western views of the nervous system and the yogic views of the nervous system, and how we could line up different practices to see how they were affecting those branches. And that's basically all that I did. I looked at correlates, and then the kleshas as well. So the vagus nerve is very interesting. The vagus nerve means the wandering nerve, and it starts from the brainstem. So within the head region, we have 12 cranial nerves, and I won't be overly scientific, just medium scientific now. So we have 12 cranial nerves. All of them are affecting things from the shoulders up to the head. So our tongue, our nose, our facial muscles, the eyes, the ears, the way we can move our mouth, the palate of the mouth, the throat, are all innervated by nerves that are sending messages all the time to be operative or to be relaxed. And so of those 12 cranial nerves, only one of them descends below the throat. And as it descends below the throat, it goes into the heart, the lungs, the pancreas, the stomach, the liver, the intestines. And then it picks messages up from all of these internal organs, and it sees what's happening in those internal organs. If you ever have had, anyone here ever had a gut feeling about something? Show of hands? Yeah. Okay. That gut feeling is a very real thing. You have 100 million neurons in your intestines. You have 100 million neurons in your spinal cord. So we have a fully fledged nervous system in the gut. And so the gut brain is a real thing. It's not a metaphor for something. It's an actual brain in our gut. And how is that information getting from the gut to the brain up here to communicate? Through the vagus nerve. And what about our heart? We have a nervous system in the heart too. We have about 40,000 neurons in the heart operating independently, releasing hormones. In the SA node, the sinoatrial node, they're the pacemaker cells that are beating on their own. They're self-propagating their own electricity, so the heart can always beat. Doesn't need messages from the brain to do that. If you take some cells out from the SA node, put them in a petri dish, they'll continue to beat. They propagate their own electricity. It's fascinating. So we have several nervous systems, but they all need to communicate with each other. And so how do they communicate? Through the vagus nerve. Now, so this is very fascinating. The yogic practices, so asanas impact the vagus nerve. Pranayama impacts the vagus nerve. Breathing impacts the vagus nerve. Chanting impacts the vagus nerve through vocalization, because the vagus nerve is innervating right alongside the vocal cords. So the simple act of chanting, so you look at all the main practices of yoga, all of them have a direct correlation with the activity of the vagus nerve. So when the information flows are moving from the brain to the body and the body to the brain, this is called vagal tone. So, and everything that we do in yoga is toning the vagus nerve.
As in like the muscle tone, when
Exactly.
you're working out and looking for toned muscles, you're talking about toning your vagus nerve.
Exactly. And so we want the messages to flow. When the messages aren't flowing, communication doesn't go well, things break down. Anywhere in the world.
Okay, so that's what it is. It's not the muscle tone, it's the vagal tone
It's
that
the
we have to
vagal
look
tone.
for.
Now, there's one other really cool thing about the vagus nerve. Well, there's a bunch of cool things, but one other really cool thing is that when the vagus nerve is innervating the head, it innervates the ear canal. It is attaching to nuclei with the corners of the mouth and with the corners of the eyes. And so, and as well as the vocal cords. So we have the vocal cords, that's expression. We have the ear, that's listening. We have facial expression through the mouth and through the eyes. So right now, as we're talking, like if I was talking to you and I could see you were bored and you had like a blank expression on your face, I would go, I'm not saying the right thing at all. I need to pick this up, you know, is YPO, yo. And so I would change what I was saying. So we regulate each other through vocal tone and through facial expression and through listening. So when I'm looking for feedback from you, the way I'm expressing myself, you're helping me to regulate my vagus nerve. And then and when you're picking up information from me, your vagus nerve is being regulated as well. So the whole process of like the way that we look at people, the way that we speak to people, the way that we listen to people, we are co-regulating each other like at every moment. Co-regulation is very important for healthy relationships. But how do we do that? We do it through listening. We do it through watching facial expression. If I was smiling at you, but my eyes were in a cold, dead stare, you'd start backing away. Is this guy Dexter or what's going on? If I'm allowed to use American TV references. So, you know, we can read even when a smile is not a real smile.
Yeah.
How do we know that? When the vagus nerve is toned. And you can see that there are people who maybe they've been severely traumatized or they have ADHD, they have something called flat affect, where the face doesn't have a lot of expression.
Right.
And there's usually some vagus nerve dysfunction with people who have flat affect.
You know,
Yeah.
when I was going through my chemotherapy, it was terrible. When I would get up in the morning, there was something that I did, and I promised myself that I'm not going to get out of my bed unless I'm feeling a certain way. And obviously, you're going through what you're going through. You're feeling miserable, there's pain, etc., etc. And I would just lie down there and start moving my muscles in a smile. And eventually, it would make me smile, and I got out with the smile inside me. Do you think I was using this technique in some sort of a way? Can you give it some scientific tone? Because this is what I did. Is this when you mentioned the tips of the lips,
Corners of the mouth, yeah.
corners of the mouth? Is this what I was doing unknowingly then?
Yeah, I mean, that's very cool that you came across that on your own, but that's an actual thing, that if you begin to smile, it sends messages through the trigeminal nerve to the brain of happiness. I mean, it's an actual thing. It's been studied, and it's a technique, and people use it. And they, you know, sometimes they say smile even if you don't feel happy. It does something to your brain. It doesn't always work. It doesn't always work.
It did.
But
It did work every
yeah.
single day.
No, I
that
mean
has
for
worked
for
me.
every single person. I mean, it doesn't always work.
Okay.
But for the people that it works for, it definitely can work. So, but it's a thing. It's true, and there is nerve signaling that happens because of it. So it's a good thing to smile, but it's also good to smile because you mean it.
Yes, that's true.
And you did mean it because you wanted to shift your mood.
Yes.
You had an absolute, intention of shifting your
Mood and living.
Yeah, and so that's what you did. So you hit the right thing. You nailed it. And one of the cool things about that is that it just shows you that when we pay attention to our body and to our internal states, which is called interoception, our body will tell us what to do. The ideas will come, and we'll do them, and they'll work. And then later on, you might read a book, or you might be sitting in conversation with someone who says something scientific.
That is happening to me right now. And with your book.
And they'll say, oh yeah, it's a scientific fact. If you smile, it's going to signal your trigeminal nerve and some other, muscles around the mouth, and it's going to send a signal to the brain. This chemical is going to release, and you're going to feel happy, and you're going to get up and go about your day. And what that is, that becomes a validation and a confirmation of your own ability to hit upon truth if you pay attention. And this is a super crucial thing for everyone to remember, that if we pay attention internally, we will learn the things from inside of our body that we need to know. Our body will tell us. And our mind and our body are not two different things. The mind is everywhere in the body. It's in every cell. Intelligence is in every cell. It knows what to do when we ask it and give it the space to tell us. So we can come upon all of these things. And then if we get some outside confirmation, it doesn't mean that the outside confirmation is right. It means that we were paying attention. And so that's a beautiful thing. So well done.
This was the question that I had asked Eddie, because there were certain things when I read or when I spoke with him and I understood. I said, yeah, I was doing this. And so I asked him, do you think it was because I was conditioned? And thankfully, when we are in here in India, that's a way of life. There's a lot of upbringing which we don't even realize, but we are taught a lot of these things on a regular basis as children. And I had done yoga as a child in school. It was compulsory. So I thought, I asked him, I said, do you think I was using that or what was happening? I mean, because that was a very, very strong answer. Every time it just felt that whatever it was that I knew, my body knew what was right for me. And the moment, that moment of clarity, when you don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow, there's an intense amount of clarity that happens, and which is what we aim for on a regular basis, not just when, you're going through a disease or going through something and you see the life flash in front of your eyes, literally. But this is what you want. And that is the clarity that I want now. Because fine, I'm in my 5th year now, I start my 5th year of remission, but sometimes you start feeling like I'm forgetting and I'm falling back into old patterns. And so that's when you feel like, was that a fluke? What happened and how did I know it? And do I trust it? And that's when I spoke to Eddie is when I realized that, yes, it can happen. And this is the fact. And my body knows. And I just need to listen to my body. Thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On a lighter note, we all want to start somewhere, and definitely we all understand it is intense. It's the relation, but there are certain things that you deal with in your chapters also, where you talk about what is the right food to eat before you start, before you do yoga, before you do the asanas, before you meditate. But when you start your practice of yoga, what is right to eat, what is not right to eat, and how does that help?
Well, definitely food is important for yoga, and it's important for life, of course. And the most important thing is that you eat food you can digest. So there are a lot of fad diets, and not all those diets are going to work for everyone. Some people say you should be vegan, you should be raw food, you should be this, that, or the other. So people should try different things and then see what works for them, what they can digest. So this is the first thing yoga says, like, eat simple foods, avoid the obvious things, avoid fried foods, things that are too oily, things that are stale, things that are packaged, things that are overly processed, including like lots of white sugar and processed flours and all these things. Avoid those, but then for the foods that you should eat, you have to make sure you can digest them. Then next, eat at the right times.
What do you mean by the right time?
The right times means not right before bed, and not at erratic times all through the day, but structure your meal times, because our body has a clock. And our body clock is, we go to sleep when it's dark and we get up when it's light, roughly speaking, unless you're a shift worker and you're working in a hospital overnight or any other type of shift worker, and then they have to reverse their clock a little. But for the rest of the people, we have a circadian rhythm, and this means that when the sun goes down, we start releasing melatonin, then it's time to go to bed. And then when the sun begins to rise, or a little before it, we start releasing cortisol, which is going to wake us up. And we want to be in line with this rhythm. And we also have digestive rhythms. And a digestive rhythm is going to be that somewhere between 8 to 10 in the morning, or 10 to 11 or so, is a time when our digestive fire is stronger. So this is going to be a good time to eat. As some clocks say 10 to 12. And then again later in the afternoon, there's going to be another digestive cycle where we can digest food properly at that time. a lot of it depends on the person, on their constitution, and on what, kind of clock they might be following,
And
a
it's
Chinese clock
perfectly
or
normal
Ayurvedic.
for different people to have different kind of windows.
Everyone is going to have a slightly different window, and so you
Right.
have to, if you have kids and everything, and you have more than one child, you can see that they all like to eat different foods at different times
Yeah.
of the day, and they're impossible.
They're
Why don't you
like,
just eat what I
"So,
tell you when I
eat it
tell
right
you? But it
now."
unfortunately doesn't work that way. So we all have these different clocks. So part of it is tuning into these cycles of when we work at our optimum. So that takes experimentation and it takes paying attention. It'd be much more fun if someone said, everyone only eat at this time, everyone only do this thing, everyone only blah, blah, blah. But sadly, that doesn't work because that just like puts people in a box where they're not going to exist well. So we have
So you
all
would
of these
say
options.
light food, as in the sense of before you start the practice, would be
Don't eat before yoga.
Ah.
I mean, if you're specifically talking about yoga
Yoga,
practice,
yes.
fine. Don't eat a big meal 4 hours before, and up to 2 hours before you can have a very light snack. Half an hour before is the earliest you can have any liquid, but only a small amount.
Okay.
Now, if you happen to practice yoga at 5 or 6 in the morning, none of those things are a problem. But if you're practicing a little later in the day, it can be a problem. Then you have to pay attention.
I can keep talking and keep asking a lot of questions, but I think we should let the audience ask a few questions, and should we throw it open to them?
Sure,
Okay.
I'm ready. I hear it's a tough crowd.
Hi. So my two important questions here were, how is yoga different from meditation? One. And the second one is, for your everyday life, which are the 5 most important asanas that we could practice for all our life? A little difficult one, but
Okay, so thank you for that question, both of them. Yoga and meditation. Yoga actually basically means meditation, and we have separated those two words off a little bit in modern times. I think primarily this has happened in the West, where we've taken yoga to primarily mean doing asanas. But in Yoga Sutra, if you look at the word yoga, it basically means meditation. Yoga is defined by Patanjali as samadhi, and samadhi is a particular type of concentration where in that deep state one loses even the idea that there's a meditator and all there is pure being. So this is the early definitions of yoga. When it comes to asanas, the idea of an asana or a posture is that it should be done in a particular way. And the way that all asanas should be done, and this is going to answer your second question a little bit, all asanas should be sthira and sukha. They should be stable, and they should be filled with good space, or happiness, or enjoyment, or pleasure. So ka means space, su means good. So how should the asana be? Sthira, stable, and sukha, filled with space. And where does that space occur? It occurs in your mind. So the next sutra says, okay, how do I get to sthira and sukha? Well, by prayatna shaitalya, a very relaxed effort. You have to make some effort, but there should be calm and ease and relaxation in your effort. And how should my mind be? It should be ananta samapati. I should be blending my mind into the infinite, into ananta, that which has no limitation. So if my effort is relaxed, if my mind is absorbed in infinity, then the asana will be comfortable, stable, steady, filled with peace. And then what's the result of that? The pairs of opposites, success and failure, praise and blame, hot and cold, gain and loss, all of these things, I will transcend them. They might exist for me in my life still, but they won't bother me anymore. So, yoga is meditation. What does that meditation mean? It means a particular way that you're fixing your mind on the thing that you're doing. In regards to asana, how should it be? It should be steady, stable, relaxed effort, blending your mind in the infinite. That will help you to get beyond all the things that trouble us in life. So what are the 5 asanas that you do? Doesn't matter, but the way you do them should be in that manner. So then you choose any 5 asanas that you like, and then you can do them.
Sure. Thank you
Basically, it doesn't matter if you can touch the toes or not when you bend over.
Yeah. I mean,
As
you
long
can also
as you're
touch your
not
toes like
stressed
this.
about it. Yeah, that's true.
Hi, I'm just going to continue to Rima's question. How with the power yoga and how people want to lose weight also with yoga, how important is the whole breathing process of it? Because as you said, stable and calmness and everything. Sometimes we're just so eager to lose weight as well that we're just doing yoga in and not really concentrating on the inhale exhale. So just want to understand how important that is.
Also, just added to that, you have a beautiful mention of what the meaning of vinyasa is, and that you've mentioned it in the book, and I think it kind of ties in with that, So I just want to throw my bit also into it.
Okay, sure.
Adding to the question, if you can, I think because there's a lot of misconception about what the vinyasa flow is, and it would be a beautiful answer.
Sure. So, in regards to weight loss, first of all, you have to check and see if you really need to lose any weight or not. That's like one question. So, and only you can answer that question. I can't answer. If I was trying to answer that question, that would not be politically correct or appropriate. So, but sometimes people do need to lose weight because they have an unhealthy amount of visceral fat. Some people have a particular body type where no matter what they do, that's going to be the shape of their body. So I don't think we should go into yoga with the idea of weight loss. I think we should go into yoga for the things that yoga promises. If there's a health condition associated with our reason for practicing, then fine. But then we need to get guidance from a professional who can help us do things in the right way in a healthy manner. There are practices that are said to increase metabolism and lead to weight loss. But there are other situations where, and I've seen this many, many times, where people have like a body dysmorphia, and they have an unhealthy relation to their body, which is actually quite in a very good shape. Or they have eating disorders, and they use yoga and they use ideas about yogic diet to help validate their eating disorders and their reasons for wanting to do it. And they become unhealthy. And then problems occur, whether they're men or women. So, in terms of like how I teach people who are overweight and they come wanting to lose weight, the things that I'm going to teach them are not do this practice, that practice, and the other to lose weight, but I might try to teach them things to be aware of what they're eating, when they're hungry, how can they make lifestyle changes. Is there stress in their life? Is there a problem in their life which has led them to eat the way that they're eating? Or is their body just the way that it is and the yoga won't change it? So it's quite a complicated issue, and I think it's a good one to bring up. And I don't know where the idea about yoga for weight loss came about. Maybe it came about from ancient times. Maybe it came about from modern times. I really don't know. But I think that if we always think about awareness and be aware of the things that we want to use yoga for and then just think about them, that's a pretty good starting place. And I'm sorry if this isn't a terribly good answer. You're the only person who's ever asked me this question, so I had no idea what it all to say, and I was speaking off the top of my bald head right now. But that's probably what I would say in answer to your question. If I was to answer your question, that's what I would say. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And now in regards to vinyasa, has anyone ever heard of this vinyasa flow yoga thing? So this is an entirely new thing. When I started doing yoga, there was no such thing as vinyasa flow. This was invented in America along with power yoga. Please accept my apologies on behalf of America. So I don't have much to say about the state of vinyasa yoga. I've tried some of it, and what did the
really
kids
want
say?
to know what you're going to say.
What did the kids say? It wasn't for me. So the idea of vinyasa, nyasa means to place, and V means in a special way. So vinyasa means to place something in a special way, which means to order the poses that you're doing deliberately and intelligently, along with breath, and to understand that you're moving into a particular position in a certain way and moving out from a position in a particular way. So vinyasa is a practice of awareness that uses breathing and movement to enter into something very deliberately and to build sequences in a very deliberate way depending on the outcome that you're looking from. So, and also there's a formulation of vinyasa which looks at V as in a special way, the word us as to sit, and ni to place. So to place something in a special way is a vinyasa. But it's been taken to mean flow. It doesn't mean flow. You won't see that anywhere in a Sanskrit dictionary.
But it is a fact that when you get the breath right, you do flow into a posture correctly, and you do flow out of the posture. If your breath is right, you do manage to do that correctly. So maybe it kind of got diverted from there. Oh, maybe.
It might have. And I might be the wrong person to ask about this because I'm not super opinionated except for about this. and other things too. So, but the idea of flow is, I think flow is a state that you can enter into. But I think that the flow state comes spontaneously from being super present. And so within vinyasa, you do one breath and one movement. And that's paying attention to one breath and one movement. And then you pay attention to the next breath and the next movement. So it's one point to the next point, to the next point, to the next point. So each point is a practice of awareness. And you move your awareness from here to here to here to here. And at each point, I'm present. Now, after many years of practice, or maybe even not many years of practice, a spontaneous thing might emerge from that where spontaneous flow comes. But the flow is not the thing that you're trying to do. The flow is an effect of paying attention. So flow arises out from moment-to-moment awareness.
That is why sometimes it feels like it's meditation in movement. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels like that sometimes when you get on few days when I feel it's a great day today, and that feels like you were meditating while moving. It's
Yeah,
a
you
simple
can,
way of putting it.
It is. You can enter into the flow state. But I think if you try to enter into the flow state, you can speak to runners or athletes about this. You train yourself to learn how to enter into it. And but I think my objection to the idea of vinyasa as flow is that that's not what vinyasa means. It's just not the translation of the word. And but we see many instances in the Sanskrit tradition where things are effects of something else happening. So, for example, peace, the word shanti. The idea of peace is not that we are trying to be peaceful or we're aiming for world peace or looking for inner peace. What you do is you try to understand yourself as being, as awareness, as consciousness, as quiet, as whatever the deep inner thing is. What emerges from there is a sense of peace. Yeah, it's super nice. I didn't make that up. It's like from your tradition. So, and so people could become backwards about it. They go, I'm searching for inner peace. Well, you're probably not going to find it, buddy, because you got a lot of stuff to get out of the way. But if you look for the thing where peace comes from, peace will be the effect of this inner transformation and an inner knowing of self. So.
Any more questions?
like mind over body more important than?
See, the body is an easier place to start because you can see your body, you can mold your body, you can change your body, you can see progress very quickly. It's difficult to start with the mind because you can't see your mind, we don't know where it is, we don't know what it looks like, it's running all over the place, it's hard to control. You sit to meditate, you immediately start thinking. At least when you're doing something with your body, you know, if I put my hand here, it's going to stay there until like I start to shake or until I decide to move it. But I can't do that with my mind. If I decide to put my mind on this glass, in 30 seconds I'm going to start thinking, Sonali's going to ask me another question, I better have a good answer. So the mind is not going to stay where we want it to be for very long. It's the nature of the mind is to think. The nature of the mind is to move. And so if we try to keep it somewhere through meditation and start there, for a lot of people, that's going to be very difficult, maybe even frustrating. But with the body, you can go, oh, I can make some progress here. I can keep my body still for a little while. As you start to keep your body still, then maybe you can start to keep your breath still and make the breath slow. And then as you make the breath slow, then you go, maybe my mind is slowing down a little with my body and my mind is slowing down with my breath. And I see this connection between my body and my breath and my mind. So, and then things begin to even out and smooth out. So starting with the asana is the easiest place, the most accessible place. Accessible meaning that if you can move your body and if you can place it in a particular way, then you can start to change your mind very quickly. But if you just start with the mind, it's a little bit more challenging. Yeah, something like that. And also the idea that the mind and body are not separate. So if you move your body in a very intentional way with a lot of awareness, then you're also moving your mind at the same time. And this goes back to what Sonali was saying about the idea of vinyasa and how she feels when she enters the flow and it's a meditative state while moving, that this is a really good point and an important point. So. Yeah, everybody needs a different type of a thing. And that's why there's so many yogas. I mean, when I started yoga, just because this is the last part of your question, I had a friend named Ted who I was working in a record store with when I was 18. And he was the first person who started teaching me about yoga. I'd done it when I was a little bit younger for a while, but nothing, I didn't keep up with anything. And so Ted and I mainly talked about yoga as enlightenment. And that was like liberation was what yoga was. And he told me that the first thing I needed to do if I wanted to practice yoga was become a vegetarian. So I did. And I was eating a horrible diet at the time. This was my diet. Burger King, McDonald's, pizza, cappuccinos, Coca-Cola, and 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And other liquids at nighttime. And that was my diet. And I was not at all healthy. And I wanted to get healthy. And Ted said, you want to do yoga? I have to become a vegetarian. I said, okay, great. I'll become a vegetarian. So basically, within 2 days, I became a vegetarian. I had no idea what to eat. So all I ate for the first couple of weeks were heads of iceberg lettuce, apples, rice cakes, and peanut butter. And that was my vegetarian diet. And so then I bought a cookbook, a macrobiotic cookbook by a guy named Michio Kushi. And in that cookbook, he had 6 exercises to do along with the macrobiotic diet, and they were yoga asanas. And so I started doing those asanas to open the meridians to be healthy within this idea of vegetarian diet. And that's how I first started doing asanas in the context of diet. Now, I looked through the book and I saw the things that he said you were supposed to eat. And so I made a long list, and I went to one of the only health food stores in New York City, because there was like 2 of them at the time. And one of them was called Sunshine. So I went there, I put all those things in my basket. I went up, he rang it up at the counter, and it was like $56. And I thought, I've never spent this much money on food in my whole life, buying a slice of pizza for $1. And now I'm spending $50 on brown rice. This is crazy. But I did it, and that's it. I've been vegetarian since then. And so that was the foundation. And then everything else came later.
Like for me, I think my journey was because it was healing, and so it started from not being able to do too much physically. So asana in that sense came in a bit later, but it started with the breath for me and being able to calm myself down and finding a path from there. So I think somewhere each one of us will have our own journey and find our way to the thing. But yes, for anybody who's not going through something major, then the physical aspect of it kind of grounds you and you can start off from there.
And
Did
that's
I say that
no,
right?
you did. It was awesome, and it's a very good point that all of these limbs of yoga are entry points. Yeah. You can enter into asana, you can enter into pranayama, you can enter into meditation at the Heartfulness Institute in Telangana. Yeah. They start with dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Like that's what you begin with. Yeah. And other places you begin with asanas, and other places you begin with service. So everything is an entry point.
Seva, as we call it, and that would be the thing with it. Any more questions?
So I am a vegetarian, and often I'm told that, how do you manage to get your proteins? And being a vegetarian, you don't get your proteins like non-vegetarians get them from, chicken, eggs, other stuff. So people tell me you should supplement yourself and with protein powders and stuff like that. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on proteins and vegetarian diet.
We just want to know what are the supplements you're taking, right? If any.
Okay, so I take absolutely no supplements whatsoever, and because I'm terrible at doing it, and I love to buy them, and then I never take them. So that's like a big problem of mine. And I'm the same with protein powders. I'll read a protein powder and I'll think, oh my God, I should really take this. This is so healthy. And I'll use it once or twice, and then it will sit in the cupboard. So I'm disciplined about a lot of things, but not supplements. And
probably you don't need it.
Yeah, perhaps I'm just lazy, which is probably the case. So people have been living for thousands of years, literally thousands of years, without eating meat, chicken, dairy, or eggs, and they've done just fine. So as long as you're healthy, as long as you feel good, as long as you have energy to get through your day, as long as you go to the doctor and your blood work is good and your blood pressure is good and your heart rate is good, and then you're fine. Then you don't have to worry about anything. But if your blood work is coming back and you have vitamin deficiencies, or you have inflammatory problems, or you have other things arising, then you might need to look at diet. But if everything is okay, then you probably don't have to worry. Then everything is fine. I'm not a dietitian. I'm the worst person to ask about diet because I only eat whatever my wife cooks for me. And if she's not around, then I eat toast and miso soup, and that's about it. So I'm a simple eater. And some people really do need to take supplements, but we never really have. She doesn't, I don't, and so I wish I could give you a better answer. I always try to be make sure I address the needs of everyone in the room. I don't want to insult anyone by saying don't take supplements. A lot of people really are very good at taking them. Deepak is amazing at taking supplements. I wish I had his discipline. He takes everything, and he looks great. So
he does his yoga. He's getting up without any support.
Exactly, the longevity practice. That's a good one to do. The longevity practice is a good one. You know the longevity practice? It's to stand up from the floor without using your hands. Yeah. It's a predictor of mortality, apparently. Yeah. Spoiler alert: we're all going to die.
Any more questions? Then
just to follow up on a question, because we heard a talk just the other day by Dr. Mark Hyman, again to YPO, and he really talked about, and he went to great lengths to actually say that you need to eat animal protein. And he says there's just no replacement for that. He says, I've been vegan, I've done all that, but There's nothing like animal protein. And I asked the same question as her because I too am a vegetarian. So is it overblown, the importance of actually having protein, unless you want to bulk up? Is that, I mean, in the normal course, isn't it what people would eat be enough to lead a healthy lifestyle?
Well, again, there are a lot of professional athletes who are completely vegan, and they might take protein powders and stuff like that. But there are a lot of athletes who are vegan, and you can find them on social media and see what they're eating and see what they're doing, and they look great, and they're doing really well. And a lot of it depends on your body type, on your blood type, on your culture, on your habits, on what your body has become accustomed to. And again, I don't think that it's good to say to people, because I do something and I've tried other things and they haven't worked, you should do what I'm doing, and this is the only way that you're going to be able to be healthy. And people do that, and I don't think that's a great approach. And no, offense towards Dr. Mark Hyman. He's a wonderful doctor, and I follow him on social media, and I listen to what he says, and he's very intelligent about all these things. But a very basic fact is a very large part of the planet exists without eating animal protein, and they live long, healthy lives. You look at a lot of the people in the blue zones, completely vegan. They have a little bit of wine. Maybe on rare occasions they have a tiny little bit of animal protein. But they can get by without it. So I don't think you need to eat it. And especially I don't think you need to eat it now if you've been a vegetarian your whole life and you don't want to eat it. I'm not a food proselytizer in any way, but what I don't think people should do is tell other people what they should be doing just because they do that. And that happens a lot in the nutrition worlds. So that's my opinion on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And also, I'm sorry, one other thing. Look at the yogis of India as well. Some of the yogis of India who've lived over 100 years have followed ridiculous diets. That you don't even think, how can a person survive on that meager amount of food or the things that they... I have a friend, Dr. Robert Swoboda, and one of his gurus used to live on chewing tobacco and a little bit of orange soda, and that was all he had. And he was well over 100. Now, I'm not recommending that diet, but again, it's not what you eat, it's what you can digest. And this is the basis of Ayurveda. And this is the basis of a healthy life. It's not what you eat, it's what you digest. It's not the right people to hang out with, it's the people who support you and the people whose experiences help you digest things. It's not the exercise that you do, that there's one particular good one. It's the exercise that works for you and sustains your body. So we digest things on many, many levels. Food, people, experiences, exercise, dreams, imagination, hopes, desires, dreams, purpose, meaning. These are all things that we can digest in particular ways. And for me, this is the essence of the yogic tradition, of the Indian tradition, of the Hindu tradition, is that there's a lot of choices and a lot of options for us because we can only digest certain things. And so we should use those things and maximize them to enhance our experience of being and our participation in the world. So that's my feeling about that.
In the spirit of the last question that we answered, would you be willing to guide us into a little breath meditation right now?
I would be delighted to.
Amazing. Thank you.
3 minutes or something? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. Sure. Okay, great. Okay, good. So isn't it funny how as soon as Akshat says, will you guide us in a breathing practice, we all sit up straight immediately? Did everyone notice that? The whole room went, okay, I'm ready. So that's cool. And what does that show? It shows that our posture also indicates a state of attention or a state of awareness. And we can remember that as well in education or in anything that we do in our lives. But especially for school kids, this is good to know that how you pay attention to your posture is going to be indicative of how present you are with something. I spent my school days going like this. I had never done my homework. So, okay, so this is what we'll do. Let's sit comfortably. And you can close your eyes if you like to, or you can keep them open. You can be leaning against the back of your chair if you like. And together we'll just breathe in a long, slow breath. And breathe out through the nose or through the mouth. And again, breathe in through the nose, a long, slow breath. And breathe gently out. And so now what we'll do is just relax the idea of breathing for a moment. And just feel the breath on the insides of your nostrils. Maybe it's a little bit cool as it comes in. Maybe it's a little warm as it goes out. Maybe it's a different temperature that you feel. But just keep your awareness resting in your nose, feeling the sensation of your breath. It doesn't have to be one place in the nose. It can move around in your nose a little. And then begin to move your breath and follow it from your nose into your throat, and then out from your throat through the nose. Only the nose and only the throat. Try that for a few breaths, maybe 5. And now let's follow the breath into the nose, the throat, and the bronchial tubes, the big branches that come down from the trachea before they enter your lungs. So the nose, the throat, the bronchial tubes. Even if you don't quite feel it, just imagine it. We'll just do 3 breaths in this one. And now let's do the nose, the throat, the bronchial tubes, and the lungs. We're not taking deep breaths. We're just feeling the breath, being aware of the breath, coming in through the nose, throat, bronchial tubes, and lungs, going out from the lungs, bronchial tubes, throat, and nose. Do about 3 breaths there. Okay, now we'll follow the breath down through the nose, the throat, bronchial tubes, and lungs, down to your navel, or the solar plexus maybe, either one. And then breathing out from the navel and solar plexus through the lungs, throat, and nose. So as you inhale, the breath comes through the nose, throat, bronchial tubes, lungs to the navel, and then back out from the navel. Try that 3 or 4 times. And when your breath comes down to your navel, relax your belly, allow it to expand. And when you exhale, begin by pulling the navel gently in as the breath goes out. now 3 times. When you inhale and the belly relaxes out, imagine the belly is almost like a pouch. And when the belly fills, say to yourself, my body is calm. And then when you exhale, and the belly comes slightly in, just pause and say, my body is quiet. Inhale through the nose, the throat, the lungs, and the belly. Pause when the belly is full and say, my body is calm. And then when you exhale, the belly gently comes in. My body is quiet. Do that one more time on your own. Then relax the breathing, relax your posture just a little. Allow the breath to flow anywhere in the body where it feels like flowing. And then we can gently open the eyes as you're ready. Okay? Okay, how's everybody feel? Good? Energized? Light? Good. So this is a nice practice to do because it allows you to begin moving your awareness to the different places in your body where your breath goes and allow your awareness to be a little bit confined to those places, which is calming for the mind. And then the suggesting to yourself that my body is calm, my body is quiet, with the breathing sends those messages to the brain. And then the brain decides to listen to those messages, hopefully, and then it sends messages through the rest of the body saying, actually, you know what? You are calm, you are quiet. And then you restore yourself to balance. And the idea in yoga is something called sovereignty. Where we, as forming contact or relationship with our inner being, we then regain sovereignty over our mind, over our body, over our awareness, and we're not thrown off by the things that we see or perceive or experience or have inflicted upon us in the world. So the restoration of sovereignty within ourselves means that a lot of things might happen in the world, a lot of things might happen to us, but that we gain the mastery and the ability to choose how we respond to those things with greater and greater levels of ability.
Thank you, Eddie. That was fantastic. I know Akshat will really kill me if I say this, but I have one question more. What next?
What next?
Yeah.
What am I doing next?
Yes.
I'm doing like 10 things next. So, okay, well, I need to finish my master's degree, and so I'm writing a dissertation right now on anxiety in yoga. I'm writing a book on the vagus nerve with a doctor named Abha Rajbandari. I'm writing a book on how to be a conscious founder with my friend Akash Mehta. I'm doing a speaker series with Deepak Chopra for the next 9 months in New York. And a couple other things, but those are sort of like, and also I'm developing our breathing app into a new version of the app which is specific for people with diabetes. So it's called the Breathing App for Diabetes, and we have a special program that we're instituting with slow breathing and gentle movement practices, and we have a small team we've developed to really bring evidence-based practices for diabetes into the form of the app to try to help people. So those are some of the main, and then of course I have to run the temple and do some yoga and make sure my wife continues to love me and my daughter speaks to me. So those are the main takeaways. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, I'm not counting while I'm speaking. That would be rude. But this is my new favorite thing in the world. This is my absolute new favorite thing in the world, and I've had it for about 3 hours. And it was given to me by Karuna and by Akshat, who are my amazing hosts in Juhu. I mean, I'm in India right now because Akshat has invited me. And he invited me because I met Akshat and Karuna through Sonali. So, and that's how I got this. So Karuna said, have you seen this mantra counter? You don't even have to use a japamala anymore. And so I was like, oh, no, I haven't seen it. And I'm 100% obsessed with it. And also it looks really cool.
Karuna, I wanted to.
I have
Yeah.
6 of them in the car. All right. I want to thank you all very, very much for your patience and attention and for joining tonight. It's a pleasure speaking about these things with you. And Sonali, thank you for being an awesome and gracious host. I really appreciate it. And I really am grateful for your friendship. And this has been great. Thank you, Akshat. Thank you, Karuna.
Thank you, Eddie.
You're
It
welcome.
was enlightening, learned a lot. Thank you so much for this evening.
And bon appetit.